Welcome to Thoughtful Planning. I'm Honey.
And I'm Santiago. As always, we want to focus you a little bit and give you an essential question. So, our essential question today is humor a way that can help you cope with your planning process?
So I was talking with my aunt about preparing for end of life, and she said, quote, this kind of thing is out of my comfort zone. And when talking about death, she likes it to be straightforward with a little humor. She says it's part of the cycle of life. We all need to accept that. So with that, April is National Humor Month, and I immediately thought of our guest today, Robin Johnson. She is a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army, and now in retirement is living her passion of not only making people laugh, but she's on a mission with her business, The Best Medicine Brigade, and her nonprofit, ARIOUS. So without further ado, Robin, hello, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, Honey and Santiago. Thanks for having me.
So Robin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the entertainment industry?
Sure. Well, I wasn't good at anything else. No, I'm kidding.
I know you're a logistics officer, so I figured that's about right.
Yep. Well, you're silly. So I retired from the Army, and of course, that transition is always hard, and you're like, what am I going to do? And what's the next chapter? And people always think that you're going to go into like whatever you did in the military, like go. So maybe I should go work for UPS or Amazon or FedEx or do some sort of logistics job. And I didn't want to do that. I would say I knew probably since I was little that I wanted to be a comedian, but I never thought it was really possible. I just thought it was kind of one of those crazy dreams, and nobody ever really does that. And so I just decided to be a big consumer of comedy. I see, you like your Pikachu and you have things that you like. I was obsessed with comedy. I watched all the greats. I was Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, Lucille Ball, George Carlin. I just loved comedy. And when I got out, one of my friends said, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And I said, well, I would want to heal people. And she said, oh, you want to go to medical school? I was like, heck no, I don't want to go to medical school. I already got my master's. I'm done with school. And then she said, well, if money wasn't an option and you had all the skills you needed, what is one thing you've always wanted to do? Or if you could make money at that you would want to do, one thing, it doesn't matter. And I was like, well, I'd want to be a stand-up comedian. And she's like, well, then that's what you should do. And I was like, well, that's crazy. I can't do that. I've never done that. So anyway, that's kind of how it started. And I took a class called Comedy Boot Camp through Armed Services Arts Partnership. And then I entered some contests. I won those. And then I just worked really hard. I think if you apply the work ethic that you're expected to have in the military and you put that to anything, you're already a step ahead of most.
Yeah, indeed. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Best Medicine Brigade and ARIOUS?
Yeah. So when I got into comedy, I realized that there wasn't really a community for military affiliated comedians. And it's a very tough industry to get into. It's probably I'm probably a little biased, but I think it's probably the hardest entertainment industry to get into. It's saturated. There's a lot of people who want to make it, much like acting or anything out modeling and any of that type of stuff. But I wanted us to have a network or community. So Best Medicine Brigade was initially designed just to be a resource for people wanting to be in the comedy industry that had a military affiliation. But then I was like, wait a second, the world needs to hear our stories. We're really funny. And a lot of the narratives have been sad and depressing. And I was like, you know what? I get it. 2 decades of war. There's a lot of sad stories. A lot of people had a lot of loss, trauma, PTSD, but that's not the whole entire story. They need to hear the funny stories too. So it became my mission to do that. And then I wasn't satisfied with that. I said, okay, well, there's a lot of healing that happens. There's a lot of physiological value to laughter and humor and consuming comedy. So why not take it to the next level and use it as a therapy to heal our minds? And so I started working with a mental skills coach for the Colorado Rockies, an operational psychologist, and we designed ARIOUS, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy program using humor. I know. Sweet. I just nerded out on you.
No, that's,
Very
I mean, that's awesome because you're right. A lot of people think about, the military as being, war this, war that, but that's maybe 10% of the time that we're out there.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the good times where you're sitting around joking and smoking and joking
Yeah.
with everybody.
Best times are like in the motor pool, or out in the field. And, soldiers, well, I don't, for me, it was soldiers, make me laugh so much. I mean, that was what kept me in the military, was the camaraderie and the esprit de corps.
Exactly.
And much of that was joking and laughing, often at the expense of somebody else, but it was all in good taste.
There was always that one soldier, right? That one trooper.
Yeah.
Honey just reminded me of one of my guys drew a picture of me when I was the XO for a battalion of in the latrine, the Port de Jean in freaking Kuwait, and it's like it's probably still floating around out there somewhere. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So Robin, when I reached out to you for an interview, you kindly responded with, "I'd love to do the interview with you." And you mentioned a book you bought called "I'm Dead Now What?"
Yeah.
You said, "I've been planning my quote in quotes fun but funeral, but FUN,
Yeah. Funeral.
yeah, ever since." And I did not even catch that when I first read it. And so when I went and I reread your message, I started laughing because then I got it. I never put that together. Fun, have the word fun in funeral. Like
Yeah.
I never saw that until you did that. So.
Well, that's what comedians do. We see the weird in everything. We're very peculiar people.
So
There's something
my
wrong with
question
me, is what I'm saying.
No, not at
I'm a
all.
little
No.
off.
Well, maybe all of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
I would say.
A little bit.
But yeah, this is the book. This is it's called "I'm Dead Now What." I don't know if I shared this with you, if you saw it on social media, but a little over a year ago, I almost died. I had a saddle pulmonary embolism, which was life-threatening. And anyway, I survived, clearly, but it was a very scary experience for me. And the doctor said that if I had gone to sleep that night, I would have never woken up. My husband saved my life because I wasn't feeling well, and he took my blood pressure, and he insisted I went to the emergency room. And I was like, no, I'm fine. If I don't feel good tomorrow, I'll go tomorrow. And the doctor said there wouldn't have been tomorrow. So I'm here.
Wow.
So after that, I had this whole new look on life. And I was like, okay, first of all, there's a lot of stuff I hadn't thought about. There's a lot of things that I haven't done. But there's also a lot of my personal things that weren't in order. Like it's like you don't think about it until like you're in my situation, I was in the emergency room and there are all these doctors around me, and I'm like crying because I'm like, I had at that time a 10 and a 9 and 12-year-old. So I was like, okay, like, what will I say to them? I've never even written them letters. Like, will they remember me? Like all these things. So I got this book so I could like kind of lay it out. And I decided that I did not want a funeral. I wanted a funeral, and I wanted it to be a celebration and a party. And I didn't want it to be sad. I wanted it to be like really fun. So I was like, I want a DJ. I want full bar. I want Jello shots, and they need to be this flavor,
Wait, what's the flavor?
Yeah. And then once the kids go to bed, I want a stripper. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
What I'm saying is I want it to be a good time.
yeah, a celebration of your life.
And like, how they do celebrate, they call them celebration of lives, but it's still sad. No, there will be, okay, fine. If you want to cry, that's fine, but you're doing a shot. Like,
Every time somebody sheds a tear, they drink it.
Yeah.
That would be,
and I don't want any of this cheap Smirnoff stuff. I want nice brands, I need some good stuff there. We don't need any of this, generic.
Yeah, the top shelf, not the bottom shelf. What is that? The military one? That like the
It's the
you know what I'm talking about, with the little flag on it, like being patriotic. Yeah, not
I can't
much.
remember what it's called because I don't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. I can't reach down that far anymore, so I'm not going to try it. So, I'm just saying, I can't even been over to touch my toe. But anyway, so have you ever told a joke about death that just really bombed and backfired? And if you have, how'd you handle it?
I've never bombed and backfired on a death joke. I've bombed and
Uh-huh.
backfired twice in my career. Once was at a ball that I went to, and like the sound system wasn't great, and it was just the whole thing was not well, just wasn't the right venue for the comedy. But and the other was actually in front of my daughter's soccer team. I got a little bit too drunk and decided to do comedy at a karaoke night, and that was not good because it wasn't like one I had drank too much, and two like you just don't do comedy at a karaoke, like that's not what it's for, you know.
Yeah.
So those two times, but a death joke, I would say I've had some people go, ooh, like that, you know, but not like where it bombed. Because honestly, a lot of people have a dark sense of humor and appreciate dark humor.
How do you think humor in the face of death changes the way we live our lives?
Oh, you're so much more optimistic about the outcomes. When it's hard to be depressed when you're laughing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's giving you more optimism. The glass is half full when you are able to cognitively shift your thinking. That's actually what Hilarious is all about. Our nonprofit and our programs is how do we help people reframe their thoughts? If you think about it, if you're choking on something, you know what to do. There's a Heimlich maneuver to dislodge something from your airway. But if you have negative thoughts in your brain or your mind, there's not really a Heimlich for that. And I believe that laughter and having a sense of humor is a form of a Heimlich for dislodging those negative thought patterns. And so I think that's very important. And I think if you live your life in that way and you allow positivity and humor in, you're not going to have like that choking feeling of just being overwhelmed. And so it really does prevent depression, anxiety, all of those things. And one of the things that I like to share is there's this Nobel Peace Laureate Desmond Tutu. He's passed away, but he said that we have to stop just pulling people out of the river. We have to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in. And I think that they're falling in because they get overwhelmed with those negative thoughts and they just can't get out of their funk and they just go in. But if they were prior to that to be able to have a sense of humor and some laughter and see some things with more optimism, they might not get to the point where they fall into the river.
Mm-hmm.
I love that quote, by the way. I just wrote it down. I'm going to use it in
Desmond
class.
Tutu is his name. Brilliant.
That is
Desmond Tutu, Tutu, Nobel Peace Laureate. Can't take credit.
So,
He was brilliant.
no, I mean, it's a great quote. And, as a teacher, I that makes so much sense to me. Why are people failing? And yeah, so, but I don't know if I had stage 4 cancer in my throat, and I always joke with the doctors, and it was more of me trying to put them at ease, so to let them know that I'm okay with what you're doing. Let's do this. Let's beat this, and keep everybody calm in the room because they come in there, they'd be like all sulking and stuff. And I remember one doctor, because BAMC here in San Antonio, Brook Army Medical Center, it's where the doctors train. And I kept joking about this kid because he screwed up my belly button. I used to have a nice little belly button. He went in there, just working on me. And I said, you screwed it up, doc. And every time he'd come, I'd mention, you're the dude that screwed up my belly button. So he was talking to the resident, the head doctor outside. He'd been a resident. He was talking to the doctor outside. And he's like, he always complains about his belly button. And she says, he's trying to tell you he's okay. That this is the way that he's trying to make you feel at ease, that's all you did wrong was make a little cosmetic deal. And it wasn't even a big deal. I was just messing with him. But, and to this day, when somebody and one of the doctors asked me, are you allergic to any meds? I say anesthesia. And they're like, well, what happens? I said, it puts me to sleep, so yeah, I just try to keep it, I don't know. But anyway, she gets mad when I say that.
No.
But what advice would you give to someone trying to use humor to cope with their planning for end of life?
So I guess if you're saying if they're planning and they're coping, that means they already know we all know we're going to die. I feel like the question is maybe like for people who have a terminal illness, or is that what you mean? Or Or are you just saying anyone?
Well, I mean, like Honey's aunt, she just doesn't want to broach the subject. She's just like, I don't want to do this. But if you make it funny, maybe
Then she's
she could
okay.
cope with it,
Yeah.
and deal with it. But in some cultures, they don't like talking about this at all, and some people just are scared of it. But like you said, it's gonna happen.
It is
You
going
just have
to
to,
happen.
are you going to be ready or not?
Yeah, it's going to happen. So you might as well embrace it and do it your way and have things be done how you intended them to be or what you want. If you own, because we don't know that tomorrow's promised. I just had a friend
Mm-hmm.
last week who found out they had a brain tumor and they went into surgery within 24 hours. And there's just so many. You could just be driving down the street. You don't know when your number's up. So I feel like
Yeah.
what's the point in being scared of it? Just make fun of it. There was I was going to share. My mother-in-law, she fought really hard, but she lost her battle to cancer that I was talking about before.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
And when she passed, we were sad. I loved my mother-in-law. She was the greatest woman in the world. We were very close. We were going to her burial, and the burial was at the family cemetery in like rural South Carolina, down this dirt road. And we get down to the end of the dirt road, and there's this huge sign that said dead end. And I started laughing hysterically because I was like, are you serious right now? Like, we're on a dirt road. There are no signs. It's not even paved. But they managed to put up this giant sign that says dead end. And I just laughed. And I felt like she would have found that funny too. And it gave me a lot of peace and comfort because it was a sad day. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know.
No.
No, you're right. We just have to learn how to deal with it. And I think humor is a great way to deal with not only end of death, but a lot of things.
Look at Jim Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan's this brilliant comedian. His wife was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and they said he does this brilliant joke. If you want to Google it, Jim Gaffigan brain tumor, you just Google it and it'll come up. But it's basically, he talks about how the doctor is telling him that his wife's tumor is the size of a pear. He's like, did you go to a farmer's market or to med school? Like, what's going on here? And he's like, does he not think I understand what centimeters are? But he just makes fun of this whole ridiculous thing that doctors speak to us like we're stupid. And in the terms of fruit size, like, oh, at least it's not a grapefruit, or So it's probably my favorite comedian bit in like the last 5 years. It's brilliant.
I guess a watermelon would be really, really bad then, right?
How do you balance humor with sensitivity when discussing or joking about end of life issues?
Well, I don't. That's why I'm a terrible human being. When my mother-in-law wasn't well, I would go sometimes, not all the time, but a couple times I went with her, and I would talk not just to her, but to other people around, even to the doctors, nurses, and try to make them laugh. I guess you can try to be sensitive, but I honestly think people like you to give them a little bit of crap and to kind of say what they're thinking all along and make fun of it. You remember the movie Patch Adams? And he goes into
Yeah.
the scene where he goes into the room with all the kids that are terminally ill, and he acts all silly, and he he just treats them like regular people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like you just be honest. I think they appreciate it because I think when you are that sick or you're getting that close, people want to tiptoe around you and pretend like it's not happening. But
Yeah.
that's not they want to laugh too. I think they're more okay with it than not. Although it is cancel culture and there's always somebody who gets offended, I guess. I'll take that risk to help the one or two people that it helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until you're on that side of the house, like when you were, when you face death, until you're there, don't tell me what to joke about,
Yeah.
mind your business.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way, it just, sometimes I don't have a filter, and I think that's okay sometimes.
What was it like?
So,
I know you're the interviewer, but like, what was it like for you when you were diagnosed? Like, did you start to think more about death than you had before?
You know, it was kind of weird because of the date that I was diagnosed. And I've some of the listeners don't know the story here, but my grandfather was born on the 25th of July, which is St. James Day,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I'm named Santiago, because that's Spanish for St. James. So passed it down to me, and that's the day that I was diagnosed. It was also the day that we had decided that we were going to let my father go. So, it was really weird how everything seemed to revolve around that day. And I felt kind of at ease because, I was like, okay, this happened for a reason. I was told on this day for a reason, and it's going to be all right. Now, there was a couple times I didn't think I was going to make it, but I always joked around, and I would, joke around. There, I had these silly face masks, and I would take pictures with the little hair thing and make it look like a big old what's it called, that little popcorn thing,
Oh yeah.
from back in the day, the Jiffy
The pop.
popcorn, or the
This.
Jiffy Pop, whatever pop. I made my head look like that, and, but I would always mess with the doctors, and my ENT doctor, I still joke around with him. I still see him, and he was a major when he started seeing me. I was a lieutenant colonel, and we talk like friends, and I think that's how it should be, especially when you're facing something as horrible as death. That your doctor and you get along and you're friends, and I think it just makes the healing process better.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. So I'm just but I felt the same way you did. I was like, holy smokes, I don't have this ready, I don't have that ready, I don't have this. And we had just, when the day that I went in for my pre-op for so they could take a look at what kind of cancer I had, we were doing our last PCS move.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove to this hospital. She was here with a truck in the front yard, and they were unloading boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so our upstairs was just full of boxes for 2 years, basically, because I couldn't walk up the stairs. And I don't know about you, but I used to, as soon as the boxes were unloaded, 3 days later, they're all laying outside and I had everything put up. And that wasn't the case.
Yep.
So anyway, enough about me.
Wait,
What?
but I have a question for
Okay,
Robin.
back to you.
How about you? How are you feeling since your incident?
Good. I mean, good. So the reason I got the pulmonary embolisms is because I had had a hamstring repair, a very minor surgery that caused a blood clot. A very random,
Wow.
very small percent of people get these blood clots, but that's what happened to me. So because my hamstring was originally kind of the cause of like the injury to my hamstring, the only thing right now is just that I wasn't running or walking and doing the exercise I need to. So I gained like 20 pounds. So I'm not thrilled about that. But other than that, my health is really good. I'm off the blood thinners finally. So they took me off of blood thinners and I'm healthy. All my labs and everything are good. So it was really just a random fluke thing that happened as a result of a very minor outpatient surgery.
And that just goes to show you never know what's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah, I was 26 at the time. I was like, I'm too young to die. So I was like, what?
Oh,
I
I'm glad you're still on the right side of the grass.
know, me too. I don't know if my 14-year-old daughter, like now she just turned 14 tomorrow. I don't know if she.
Well, she'll never grow out of it. Just to let you know, our daughter's almost 30 years old, and she's still a handful. What's one thing, I guess, that you would share, knowing what you went through and everything, if you want to share with the audience regarding, humor and death and how you deal with that?
So as comedians, when we're looking at our premises and when you talk about joke writing, we take a topic and we say, what is, and comes from Judy Carter, the Comedy Bible. It's not my idea. It's what's weird, hard, scary, or stupid about that premise. So like, what's weird, hard, scary, and stupid about having cancer? What's weird, hard, scary, and stupid about having a pulmonary embolism? What's weird, hard, scary, and stupid about funerals? There's so much material that could be there. So if you're kind of stuck, because I think a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to like, yeah, but I'm not funny. Like, that's good for her. She's a comedian. Of course she's funny. No, you can be funny. And the best way to start is to get a journal and just write. And if you don't like to write, old school, you can even do the notes your cell phone. In fact, I just did, and this isn't about death, but even tonight at dinner, I thought of a premise and I like wrote it down really quickly. I was like, that is really good. And you just do that all like each day, especially if you're having fears or anxiety about death or end of life. Every time something pops in your head that's a little like weird, put it in your notes or write it down and then pick it apart and be like, just like Jim Gaffigan did. It's very scary that his wife had a brain tumor. But what was weird about that? It was the doctor talking about it like it was a pear. It's not a pear, it's a tumor. So he like took that and he went on like a whole path with it. And we can do the same every day in our day-to-day life. I mean, I went to Belk and I was supposed to return something. I returned it only to buy something else that cost more money. And then I left it in my car for my husband so he wouldn't see it. Like I was going to sneak it in when he wasn't around. And then he had to get something out of my car. So then he finds it. And then I'm in the house. And instead of coming in and talking to me and calling me out, he texts me like a picture of the item and the receipt in the bag. And it's just a whole thing. And I think that's very funny. I was like, you could have just came in and be like, oh, nice suit that you bought at Belk. But instead he was like taking a selfie with the receipt. So,
so
it's not a full joke yet, but it will be one day.
It will be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
funny. Thank you, Robin, for being our guest today. This has been very hilarious. Will you share with our audience the best way for them to contact you?
Yes. Bestmedicinebrigade.com or Healarious, which is HEALARIOUS, like healing, .org, or Robin at bestmedicinebrigade.com. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all those good things as Robin Phoenix Johnson.
Awesome. Do you have any events coming up?
I have a lot of events, but they're all private events. So I'm teaching for the Institute for Defense and Business at Duke University. I'm going to be doing some private events for DoD and for Wounded Warrior Project. I just did a show at West Point. Yeah.
Nice. So
I don't have any public events where like people could buy tickets, but yeah, I get booked a lot to do private events. I do workshops and keynotes and then comedy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Hey, I'm available for funerals. If anybody needs a comedian for their funeral.
For funerals or funerals?
It's funny. You're right. I ruined my own thing. I should market for that. I should be like your local funeral comedian. I can roast your loved one.
Yeah.
Just $9.99. Like you can buy in advance. And then what would be even better is if you booked me before you died, then we could work together for the set to be perfect. And then like if you're like, don't listen to Uncle Harry, he's got really bad dirt on me from when I was in high school. And I'm like, okay, that's gonna be an extra $299.
That's actually
I think I want.
I feel like I just built a new business in this podcast.
that's funny.
I'm going to be doing a lot of funerals in the coming months.
Yes,
That's
I'm writing this down actually.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah, write it down. I've been taking notes too.
Work. That would be so good. I did roast. I've done a couple roasts, like for birthdays and for like bridal showers, and like wedding showers and gender reveals and like that kind of stuff. But I have not done enough. Oh no, actually, one of the first gigs I ever did was a funeral, and it wasn't really called a funeral. They called it a celebration of life, and it was my co-worker's son that had passed. And she asked me to do comedy, and I did not want to because I was a new comedian at the time, and I didn't feel ready. But she really said that I really need you to make them laugh. Please make them laugh. Please make. And I respected her so much. I didn't want to let her down. And so I did it, and that was awkward, but I also like felt good to make them laugh. So I feel like I could do it. I feel like I could do this business. But it's nice
Yeah.
because the first night there was like a little get together, and I got all them talking about him and got all this stuff, and then I stayed up all night writing my set, and then the next day did like a 10-minute kind of jokes about him, and it was really
Oh,
interesting because like the baby mama was there, but then also the girlfriend, so I had a lot of fun to play with.
that's funny.
That is pretty funny.
It was fine to everybody but the girlfriend.
But yeah,
Okay.
wow. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. But
I know I left
no,
you guys on kind of a weird note. I'm sorry.
no,
No,
that's
it's funny.
I love it. Because I have a sick sense of humor. So I think we all do. Like you said, a little darkness in there. So I know that I deal with humor. I use humor to deal with a lot of things. At least I try to. But it's a good way to just get it off your chest. So I want to circle back to our essential question, which is humor a way to help you, our listeners, cope with the planning process? And maybe it should be just, is it a way just to deal with life?
Mhm. For sure.
For sure.
Well, until next time, remember every chapter you write today shapes your legacy tomorrow. Thank you for joining us at Thoughtful Planning.